production. But so I'm kind of curious to know a little bit more about the fact that this is a conference that used to be in San Francisco,
Right.
and you guys pulled this conference from San Francisco. I want to know, is this because of the fact that they tried to pass a law that would provide more safety?
Sure. Well, first off, just for the record, we had a contract with San Francisco that we honored and fulfilled that, and didn't have a contract to go anywhere for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was after that show last year that we took open bidding, and we've been here in San Diego in the past. So this was nothing new to come here. But frankly, and we've made no bones about it, some of our decision was about what the city did, what we thought was irresponsible and in some case alarmist, with the kinds of materials and the kind of representation of the facts that we think they're playing with right now, and that's why we filed suit against them in court. So we're challenging them based on the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, and we think we're on pretty good grounds there, and they've gone way out of bounds.
A couple of people are kind of confused about how it's a First Amendment issue. Can you explain a little bit more about?
Sure. I mean, there's a pretty, we think, constitutional demarcation between what a state or a municipality can do and what the federal government can do. In this case, when there is a compelling public interest, which is, in this case, public health, we think the Constitution clearly puts that responsibility, that fiduciary responsibility, in the case of the FCC in this matter. The FCC has set very stringent public health standards. We abide by those standards. We produce products that meet or beat those standards. They can't operate in the U.S. if we don't. And so it's our position, in order to have a consistent national framework, especially with regard to public health, that the Constitution says that responsibility lies with the federal government, not with a state or a city.
From what I understand, the FCC doesn't hire any health advisors. They only take advice from different health advisors. And a lot of them have said that they should be issuing these precautions because other countries like England and France and even recently Canada have issued warnings more specifically geared toward the fact that children get a lot more radiation from these. And so while the FCC has all these engineers that work for them, do you think there's a conflict of interest by the fact that they don't hire any health advisor to speak on?
I don't want to talk about what a federal agency does. I'm not privy to their processes. I know that there's an interagency working group, a collaborative working group of about 10 federal agencies that deal with radio frequency issues. The FCC, the FDA, NIOSH are 3 of the 10. And so they work really almost on a perpetual basis, but certainly a consistent basis, to review safety standards, review known literature. This has probably been one of the most researched topics health-wise of the past 4 or 5 decades.
Mm-hmm.
So the phenomenon is certainly nothing new, and the interest is nothing new. And we welcome that research. We're not experts, we're not clinicians, we're not scientists, but we do defer to those who are. And that's what I would say to anybody on this issue is, look what the National Cancer Institute says, look what the FCC or the FDA, or in some cases the World Health Organization. Look at their conclusions. Look at this body of evidence.
They listed it as a possible carcinogen.
One side did, and the other side hasn't. And they have their own internal issues with that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I won't take qualm or make qualm or have exceptions with what they do. But there is no known evidence, according to science, of any adverse health effect. And that's the fact. And so whether someone is alarmed or concerned about any hypothetical situation, they have that right, they have that prerogative. But if you base your opinion on being well-informed and educated and are looking at accurate and third-party independent information, then you should feel pretty good about what that information is telling you.
A couple of engineers who I've spoken to have suggested that if researchers had access to the call records that the federal government controls, they might be able to make better assessments about this and to either prove or disprove the fact that they might have any association with cancer risk. Are you opposed to this?
Well, the federal government doesn't control any call records whatsoever. I would be highly opposed to that. I think anybody who's a believer in the American system of life wouldn't want the federal government snooping into their lives.
But Homeland Security has access to those records.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, if Homeland Security has access, Would you be opposed to giving that same access to researchers,
Well,
just looking at the health effects?
There's no reason to grant that access based on the overwhelming evidence of the scientific pieces of work.
It's kind of mixed.
But we could
though.
argue about that.
I know, but you said the World Health Organization is kind of mixed.
I completely defer, as we always have and consistently have, to what the scientific community says. And that's where we leave it. We are not expert in this area. We've never pretended to be. We completely defer to what the science is, and the science, according to the National Cancer Institute, the American Cancer Society, the World Health Organization still, the FCC, the FDA, there's a litany of organizations on whose opinion or position we put great credence, and we suggest that other people do that same. But there are many also who claim to have interpretations or other perceptions of that research, and they're entitled to that. But we looked at what the agencies say, and I think that is what a well-educated and well-informed and balanced person would do too.
Has the CTIA ever lobbied to these organizations?
Sure. As far as educating them to what we think is appropriate in terms of the relationship of responsibility, what would be San Francisco, for example. We had numerous meetings with the city of San Francisco. Now, if you want to call that lobbying, or you want to call that discussion, whatever you want to call it, but we have been very clear with that group what our intent is. We haven't had hidden behind any. There's no hidden agenda here. We think that their activities certainly false. It's harmful, and that it creates misperceptions, and that's why we've taken them to court.
But it's all information that's within the user manual, everything that they're putting in their warning. None of it is coming from a third-party source. It's all information that was given to customers just after they had bought their phones. So is there anything wrong with presenting that information ahead of time?
No, well, the customers have access to it in different forms, and as you probably know, I mean, suppliers they use different wording, carriers use different wording. What they see fit to put in their manuals is certainly up to them. There's a pretty wide variance there in terms of all the information, how you operate a device, how you use it, where you should use it, what you can do with it, those kinds of things. Pretty wide swing. So I wouldn't generally say everybody does this, because in a competitive industry, nobody does anything the same way. They do something they think differentiates themselves from the competition.
So you said that you mentioned you lobby for education. Do you guys lobby financially to any of these organizations or politicians?
No.
Well,
you say, we make contributions to politicians, but nobody, I think, has any role in this whatsoever, not that I'm aware. But we do go to the FCC on probably, I'll bet our people at our organization have had 500 meetings at the FCC over the past year on 25 different topics. So the fact that we would ever go to the FCC is, if somebody thought that was unusual, they don't understand what's going on with regard to the give and take in the formulation of policy.
So the way I understand it is that the FDA handles more things that are ingested in the body, and the FCC handles things that are more electronics that are further away.
Well, I just know the FCC deals with communications, so I don't know how they differentiate themselves.
Would you be opposed to the FDA regulating the safety standards for cell phones?
Well, their position's already pretty clear on this too. They if you.
But I'm just saying, because I know they have more health advisors, and maybe it would set. Set it clear that they're not at all.
That'd be presumptuous of us to start assigning federal responsibilities. That's not our job. That's the job of the federal government.
But are you opposed to it?
Yeah, I don't have an opinion either way about it. We have the guidelines. We build products according to those guidelines. We know with whom we have to work, whether it's Congress on a given issue, or the FCC, or the administration, or state, or consumers, and that's what we do. And so it's driven by other pressures and responsibilities, what we do as a living. If we got to call all of our shots, as nobody does, it'd be a very different world, I imagine. But for the most part,
how would it be different?
No, in general, if you got to call all of your shots, it'd be a great world probably for you. But I'm just saying, we abide by the standards and the regulations and the processes that have been well established by the federal government in this case.
So it's pretty obvious that even if this information did come out, the warning label, people are continuing to buy their cell phones. They're going to buy multiple ones per year. So do you think it is detrimental, though? This is just in one of the manuals. It says your exposure level drops off dramatically with distance. if that's in fine print, why shouldn't that be made more available when someone is buying it, so that way they're just...
Well, tell me what the, again, not knowing, not having seen that, the context of that information, the intensity of our discussion changes when I move 1 inch away, and it picks up when I move closer. So dramatically, are you inferring from that that's unsafe? Well, the FCC tells us it's not, and that it's safe by a factor of 50
But it says
times.
that it's safe only if you keep it at least 5/8 of an inch away from the body at all times. So that's what I'm
Well, I
saying.
don't know. That's a blank sheet of paper you have there.
Oh,
I don't
that's
know where
from
it
the
came
iPhone.
from.
I have the actual, if you want to see the hard copy,
Yeah.
I keep it in my wallet with me.
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well,
I do have
it's
to
just
wrap it up
in
though
the-
and get back.
I understand. Can I ask you one more question?
If it's a brief one, because I'm right in the middle of
I gotta take
a.
up to another.
Just one last question. If people's health are at stake, would you make a difference about this if you saw an actual legitimate case that you feel is...
I think there have been a number of cases already in federal court about this that have been dismissed because the evidence tells us strongly, according to science, that there's no health risk that is incurred from using these devices. So, again, based on the empirical evidence, the third-party, independent, verified information, science tells us that these devices are safe, and that is what we then therefore really ground our position on.
Could they be safer?
I think.
No,
I mean,
that was the last one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much
I mean,
once
that's-
again.
yeah. Hope I've given you enough time.
Yeah, no,
So
that's
yeah.
great.